there a second to the nomination?
I'll second the nomination.
I do.
Favor saying aye?
Aye.
Okay. Seat may stay in my seat. You're moving like that, I thought I had to move out, get evicted.
Good afternoon. Lieutenant Natalia Illich-Haley. I was here last time that you guys met, so I wanted to give you an update on the cases that we've had since last time we convened for 407 South Jupiter. So we've had 3 that came before, that qualified for nuisance properties, but that have been closed out due to not having any further activity. One of those was 1472 Pierce Street. That's a single-family residence. It was deemed a nuisance property on January 5th, 2018. The owner addressed the concerns with a problem tenant. They moved out. He updated his rental agreement, and since then they've had no further criminal activity, so that one was closed out. The other one is 1320 Cleveland Street. That's the old Regal Motel. That one is, it was deemed a nuisance property on August 7, 2018. It had a new owner, and they conducted extensive renovations on the property. So because of that, all the tenants that were creating the issues moved out because they're actually still undergoing renovations right there. So we've had no issues at that property, but that owner owns other hotels as well, so he's very invested and cooperative, so he understands that he needs to be on the property to basically mitigate who's there. The other one is 110 South San Remo. That's a single-family residence. That was deemed a nuisance property in January of 2018. The owner of the residence is no longer allowing her adult daughter to stay on the property, and she's the one that was bringing all the drug activity there. So since she moved out, all that activity has stopped. The owner's been cooperative with calling the police to have unwanted guests trespass from her property. So that one was all closed out. So we have 7 that are currently open. The first one is 210 Waverly Way. That's a single-family residence. That one was deemed a nuisance property on October 31st, 2018. So that one's a difficult situation because that owner no longer wants to own the property. He's a co-owner. The other owner passed away. His wife took over his ownership. She will not allow him to sell. So his solution is to let the banks take it over. So it's vacant. It's the police officers are going and making sure that people aren't trespassing and breaking into the property. So all the issues have stopped there just because it's vacant and there's no plans to actually have tenants in there again. We have made 1 drug arrest from there. It was for possession of drugs. It was a subject that broke in and was basically just trespassing on the property. But it's only been a couple incidents since then. The other one is 1258 Franklin Street. It's an apartment complex. And the issues were really addressed with one of the apartments in particular. It was deemed a nuisance property on December 31st, 2018. There were issues to address criminal activity on the property that the owner addressed, such as improving his lighting and trespassing subjects that don't belong and that were loitering in the common areas of the property. The property owner evicted the problem tenants on January 22nd, 2019. The owner is very cooperative with our suggestions, and he's actually going to also look to add security cameras on the outside. There's been no further cases on that one. 1005 Pennsylvania Avenue, that's a single-family residence. It was deemed a nuisance property on January 30th, 2019. In that residence, several family members live within that residence. One of the residents' adult son is the one that was bringing the criminal activity there, so they have since kicked him out of the home. They're no longer allowing people to loiter outside in the common areas, so we haven't had any further criminal activity at that location. 1205 North MLK, that's the Food Mart. It was deemed a nuisance property on January 30th, 2019. The owners are very cooperative. They updated their blanket trespass warning, which basically gives us the right to trespass people from the property after hours. A lot of the issues were with people loitering outside, so they've kind of stopped that, and they'll call us to move people along after they purchase whatever from inside the store, and they'll just loiter on the corner, so they don't allow that activity anymore. We have not had any additional cases made there as well. The other one's 1462 Franklin Street. Those are apartment complex. It was deemed a nuisance property on January 30th, 2019. There have been additional arrests for drug activity in February, but since then the owner's been very receptive to our suggestions. He's evicted all the tenants that were involved with the criminal activity. The owner is continuing his efforts to improve the property. He's added exterior lighting. He's removed some broken down vehicles that were inoperable, that were just parked on the property, that were an eyesore and a nuisance, a code enforcement issue. And he's also working on installing surveillance cameras. So since February, there have been no additional cases made at that location. The other one is 215 Waverly Way. That's a residential property. It was deemed nuisance property on March 11, 2019. The subjects listed on the nuisance letter were not the tenants as far as the owner knew. The owners advised that all of his apartments there have, all his apartments there had new tenants since the time that the drugs were sold. So the problem tenants were no longer there, and we have not had any additional cases at that location. And then the last one is 1576 South Washington Avenue. That's a single-family residence. It was deemed a nuisance property on March 11, 2019. The tenant is believed to be involved in the drug activity. The owner is hesitant to evict him because he's a very long-standing tenant of his, and they have a personal relationship as well. So she's not willing to evict him. We spoke about her needing to update her leasing agreement because currently he's paying whenever he feels like it, and he's not on a lease. His lease expired. So I've been speaking with her to update that. The owners made efforts to clean up the exterior of the property, but there are still several items there that need to be cleaned up, and code enforcement is involved in those efforts as well. But at this point, we have not made any additional cases at that property. And that's all I have for you.
Does anybody have any questions?
The food mart on MLK.
Yes.
Is that the North MLK?
Yes.
Down there by the body shop and all that?
North of
Elkridge
that.
and Seminole Street?
Yep. It's
So
north.
how, let me ask you this, how can you enforce no loitering when every weekend they're setting up barbecue and every other thing on the property over there?
Well, the other one, that's Jim's Barbecue, north of that, and they allow people on their property, but the drugs were actually sold from the food mart.
From the food
So
mart?
basically, and the problem is when people go on the sidewalks and just hang out there, unless they're impeding somebody else from walking on the sidewalk, we can't really do anything about it.
Right.
But people were just loitering and hanging out on that corner, on their property, in the parking area.
Right.
So that's the part that they can enforce. So basically, with an added presence and them knowing that the owners are going to start calling the police if they don't vacate, because the owners felt a little threatened that, they would tell these kids to move along,
Right.
and they were in fear of them.
Right.
Well, we start calling the police a couple times, and we show up, and people tend to kind of scatter and find somewhere else to be. But the barbecue, that's a different location.
No, I was talking about like directly north
Right.
of the building. There's a
On the
vacant
backside
lot.
where there's a barber shop and all that?
Yeah, right next to the barber shop.
Mm-hmm.
They set up barbecue in that
Yeah.
lot. I mean, it's illegal barbecue.
Right.
They don't have any,
Right, but that has nothing to do with 1205 North MLK with the food mart, that's a different property.
okay.
Any other questions? I guess our business is concluded. I don't have to move to adjourn, right?
No, you can just call it adjourned if you want to do it.
Okay.
Tom,
Or do we have something?
are we going to set the next meeting, or because now we're losing members, do you want to wait?
Well, so the question came up before the meeting as to whether or not we can go ahead and schedule a meeting. We'd like to do that.
Okay.
And when it becomes a problem for any new members that come on board, we may need to adjust it. But we're looking for a 6-month set down the road.
Didn't Rosemary already tell us there was one in December?
Yes, there is one in December,
Okay.
it'll be the first Wednesday in December, and that's the one that would be the next set meeting.
Okay. So,
I think that's December the 4th that we figured out. So December the 4th at 3 PM would be the next meeting,
okay,
unless there is a need to have one sooner, and then that meeting would be set.
okay. Does then someone want to move to agree to that?
I move to agree to that.
Okay.
Okay, you just need a consensus, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Here?
Here? Right.
Here in Chambers?
Okay, I think that's all we needed then.
Okay.
I'd just like to say one thing. This is my last time on the board. I wish we'd had a little more action in the first 4, I can't believe 4 years have gone by already, but I guess they have. But I just think this is a pretty good board. I'm glad to see that they're already having people taking care of things, not having to come before the board. That's a great job, I guess, the police are doing, so congratulations to you people. And I'd like to thank the rest of you board members for, see, Nancy, Jack, and you are the only 3 I really knew, so the rest of them are gone and started with me, so
And thank you for your service, Chuck.
you're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
Nice meeting.